Welcome everybody to Bitcoin Milwaukee Hangout with Jeffrey Tucker. Today is February 6th at 7:15-ish p.m. Central Time. Jeffrey Tucker, for those who some of our members are just meeting you for the first time tonight. Some of us are longtime fans, admirers of your work. So just a quick intro about Jeffrey, and then I'll let you take over and tell us about all of these different projects you've been involved with. But
sure.
Jeffrey developed the Mises.org website,
right?
And he's also you run Laissez Faire Books as well. And the newest project that a lot of us are really excited about is Liberty.me. So we're really excited to hear about that. And then a number of one thing I'm very interested in is your conference that you held, the Bitcoin conference that you put on in Atlanta. I know that was in large thanks to you and your efforts. So, yeah, with that, just take it away, Jeffrey. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, yeah, sure. But can you tell me where precisely in Milwaukee, what is this bar? Where are we?
So we're at Bad Genie Rock Lounge, which is right downtown. For those who are familiar, it's on Jefferson Street, right near Cathedral Square Park, kind of the center of the downtown area. And Bad Genie is a Bitcoin accepting business, the first hospitality establishment in Milwaukee to accept Bitcoin.
Really?
They've been at it now for, let's see, since I think late August. They've been accepting Bitcoin, and we meet here once a week, and we have about, on average, 20 to 30 members show up every week. About 3 to 6 new people every week, sometimes more.
So can you tell me? I mean, I've been to the Pabst Theater, and to the Hotel International or something like that. You know, is it somewhere near that?
Yeah. So basically, if you walked out the front doors of the Pabst and walked straight up the hill of the street that's perpendicular to the Pabst, right in front of you, out those front doors, 2 blocks ahead, and that's right about where Cathedral Square Park is, and Bad Genie's on the corner, so right downtown there.
That is so cool. Well, I'm so happy to be here because, you know what? I'm totally devoted to Milwaukee. I mean, I think it's like this amazing place. So
great.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, well, thank you so much. Yeah, tell us more about that. How come?
Well, I mean, the cold is terrible. Okay, let's just all grant that. Okay, it's like too freaking cold in Milwaukee, I think. But apart from that, it's a beautiful and charming city with a great deal of love and a love of the arts, and some of the coolest people I've ever met, who are into all the right things. And the wonderful thing about Milwaukee, I think, is that you have a sense of detachment from Leviathan when you're there. And I'm not sure why that is. I think it's just because there's such an entrenched and deep, rich culture that believes in itself and loves itself, you know, from its heritage and its history of productivity and enterprise. That there's a sense of independence from Leviathan there. So I love Milwaukee. I could hang out in Milwaukee for like months, weeks, years. It's just a great place.
Cool. Well, yeah, we would love to have you. I think you're touching on something I noticed too. I spent time away from Milwaukee for several years and came back, and there's certainly so much pride here. In all kinds of things. All of the I guess the city's exports or specialties, and the sports teams too, and just being from here, and the heritage as well, the Laverne and Shirley-ness of it all and stuff.
I know. Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. But it's I mean, the last time I was there, I went to this glorious concert, and it was a concert of music of a video game music at the Pabst, I think it was. Do you know what I'm talking about at all? But anyway, what was great is that the place was...
Yeah, lots of the folks here are nodding their heads.
Okay. The place is like totally packed, right? Like every seat sold. and everybody was like totally into this very cool orchestra that was playing this video game music, and but the love of progress, the love of technology, the love of commerce, was so alive in that room.
I'm
And
really
the
glad. Go ahead.
independence. Yeah, I mean the sense of independence. It inspired me to such an extent I can't even describe it to you. So, in other words, this is why Milwaukee is like really important to me. Because of that experience.
Well, we love hearing that very much. One of the reasons I thought Milwaukee would be a perfect place for a Bitcoin meetup and a lot of community outreach is because I think it's a perfect little like petri dish of basically medium-sized city or smallish city America. And if Bitcoin can catch on here, where it's not entirely so dilapidated as say maybe Detroit and Cleveland are, and many parts of those towns. And maybe not. There's a lot of vibrance here, a lot of a good social subculture, good nightlife, like you're mentioning. And I thought for sure that with a little bit of a startup community that's brewing here, pun intended, and just a number of other things. I think, it's. I thought a Bitcoin presence had to be here, and that it would be very healthy.
Next time, next time. When I come to town next time, I will definitely I would love to come and meet all of you. By the way, the best meal I ever had was in Milwaukee. Just to let
Tell
you
us
know.
about that.
Okay. So it was a pretzel burger. Do you know about these things? It's a hamburger. It's like a pretzel bun. All right. So and pepper jack cheese, and I can tell you that like almost every meal I had since then, I think this is not as good. I mean, it was amazing. Yes. Best meal ever. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, you can pay $1 gazillion for whatchadoodle fish from whatever sea. It doesn't matter. The pretzel burger and with pepper jack cheese in Milwaukee is the culminating event of my culinary life. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. That's very high praise.
So to buy one with Bitcoin would just be about everything that you ever wanted in life.
That would be amazing. Yeah, well, tell us where you had that. I know there's a couple restaurants that do the pretzel bun. Tell us where you had it, and we'll go after them real hard.
Okay, so I can't remember the name of the hotel. I think it's Hotel International, something like that. International Hotel, something like that. Intercontinental Hotel at the bar there, and I tell you, they served it, and it was just beyond belief. I mean, it's like you think, oh, it's a hamburger, but then after like a couple of bites, you begin to realize this is not just a hamburger. This is like the greatest burger ever, and I don't know, it's so dreamy that it sticks with you. And there's very rare meals that happens. I wish they accepted Bitcoin. Maybe this will happen in time. But we all know the truth.
Was it by chance AJ Bombers? Was that it?
No, it was the hotel. It was
in hotel.
Intercontinental. I think it's like Milwaukee International or it's like right down the street, right? It's where the Pabst Theater is. It's the hotel connected to all those like 3 theaters right there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And in the bar there. I mean, it's like the greatest thing you've ever had in your life. But this may be like a Milwaukee, like everyone in Milwaukee already knows this. Like every restaurant in Milwaukee has great pretzel burgers with pepper jack cheese. I don't know, but that was the only place I experienced it, and I I couldn't believe it. So
cool. Well, please come and we'll host you. We'll accommodate you handsomely, and we'll have all the pretzel burgers, bratwurst, and beer and cheese you can stomach. So
that's fabulous. So let me, if you're interested in my Bitcoin story, I'm really glad to tell it. I think it's great. I'm now like ever more, like almost every day I learn more about Bitcoin. I must say, it's like you think you know how great it is. You've already used it. It's like initially I was sort of interested in the fact that somebody could create a currency that wasn't the dollar, and I didn't really believe that was possible. But then I began to realize it was possible. Then I was, of course, interested, like all noobs, in what merchants were available to accept it, and that's great and fine. And so, but the first time I used Bitcoin, well, the first time I received it, I suddenly had a sense that this was the real deal. And I was a skeptic for about like 2 years before. But the first time I used it, that's when things began to change for me. And I went on to the Bitcoin store, which I think was the first thing that came up. I bought the first thing I could find, which is a pair of crimping pliers, which I didn't need, and I bought them anyway, just because I wanted to see it. And so, like 3 days, and after I scanned the QR code and it extracted the property from my cell phone, I just did a dance around the room. I thought, this is, guys, I must tell you, this is like 1 year ago, okay? Not even. It's more like 11 months ago. I was in my dining room when this happened, and I scanned the code. It took the property out of my cell phone, and I went, holy shit! You know that sense of like, what the fuck is going? You know that sense of like, this is the Jetsons world, you know? I've just left the past. I've now entered the future. You know, that sense of floating. And I just got up and danced around the room. I thought, okay, this is it. This is it. I don't know what it is, but it is the future, and it has something to do with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, you know? It overwhelmed me. And about 3 days later, my crimping pliers arrived, and I thought, oh, great, I don't need these. But anyway, I'm glad I'm with Bitcoin, you know. So in the course of time, I mean, for me, my interest in Bitcoin has been a matter of like being a student. I've wanted to learn more about it. So that's when I put together the conference. Now recall that this happened when the price was like about $20 maybe, okay? A dollar exchange rate with Bitcoin is about $20. And so my interest in Bitcoin coincided with the great price run-up, which nobody remembers, of April 2013, which is an eternity ago. That's like a century ago, except it was only like 10 months ago. But and it was this big thing, and like you know, it reached like $30, and everyone was saying, "Oh my God, Bitcoin's a bubble," you know. Oh, Bitcoin is a racket. You know, this money crank scheme, a pump and dump scheme, is now a bubble. You know, well, I can't like control myself at all, began to write a whole series of articles about the glories of Bitcoin. Even though I didn't know that much, but I was still learning, and I was like so excited. I wrote like 10,000. I don't know. I mean, I probably wrote like 40 or 50 articles on Bitcoin this year. Probably more than that.
I think I read it all, so.
Yeah, and I kind of got, like, people were like blaming me for being part of a pump and dump scheme, which is just hilarious because, like, not that I wouldn't want to be part of a pump and dump scheme, but but I actually wasn't. Like, if this was a scheme, nobody invited me in. I didn't have any stake in it. Yeah. So sure enough, the price just shot up, and it was hilarious. I don't know how many of you were involved in those days, but it was hilarious because you'd like go to bed, and the price would be like 50, and you'd wake up and it would be like 90. And then you go to bed, it would be like 140, and then you wake up again, it would be like 190. You know, I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
And you know, and then it just ran up to about 260 and just collapsed. And those days were like fraught with like peril in some way because it collapsed back down to 80, but actually that wasn't a collapse because the whole thing happened in like a couple of weeks, and it had previously been $20 or $30. And we're illustrating this sort of short-termness of people's mindset. And the other thing is, like, it doesn't really matter what the price is actually. And we're talking about a world-changing technology. This is railroads. Okay, this is electricity. This is flight. This is food. I mean, this is like all the coolest things that have ever happened in civilization, all combined into one damn thing. All right, what price it is today, tomorrow, next month, whatever, last year, 5 years, it doesn't actually matter. This is a technology that's going to change the whole world. So, but of course, everybody's like maniacally focused on this narrow consideration of the dollar exchange rate. And it's always this way with technology. I mean, it's this way with railroads. If you read the headlines anywhere between 1870 and 1890s, all the headlines about railroad were about stock market scams. Oh, here's a company that went belly up. Here's a bunch of people that lost money. Here's a racketeer. Who printed up a bunch of fake stock certificates. That was the headlines of 1870, 1890 concerning railroads. It wasn't, oh my God, here's a transforming technology that's bringing all of humanity together, cutting down travel times by 97%. Integrating commerce for the first time ever. That wasn't the headline. The headline was the scandals. And so it is with Bitcoin. And it's been this way for the whole of 2013. Anyway, as time has gone on, I've learned more and more about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and the infrastructure that's developing around it. And what has taught me more than anything else is that humanity is capable right now of making a new future for itself, apart from the government. From the ground up, growing up a new monetary system that's global, that can draw in the whole of humanity in a great project of building civilization. That's the essence of what Bitcoin is about. And it's impressed me very much. By the way, I'm hearing an echo. Is my sound distorted, or am I okay?
You sound good on our end, but it might be the microphone. I'll take care of it. But you mentioned a couple things that I wanted you to elaborate on.
Go ahead.
You talked about how your first experience spending bitcoins was so euphoric, psychosomatically euphoric, and I had the same sensation. But you mentioned the word property a number of times. I'd really love for you to expound on that aspect of this technology,
right?
If you could.
Right. So here's the thing. So we don't know this because we haven't had money as property for like 100 years, right? So none of us alive in this room know anything about what money is like as a property. For us, money is like a stupid little wavy dollar bill, which we don't care about. But mostly it's about a third-party relationship. So we have to cough up our identities to some third party, who says, "Oh, you're a good guy. I really like you. You pay your bills. So I'll vouch for you that you're going to do this to another third-party institution," and so on it goes. And like days pass by, your Social Security number is coughed up. The whole of who you are is integrated into your transactions. I mean, this is an idiotic and stupid and ridiculously hacked system. It has nothing to do with commerce. I mean, in some ways, it's a credit to private enterprise that anybody was able to cobble together this elaborate system to protect against identity fraud or whatever. But it has nothing to do with what money is. Money was and should be, in the future, real property. It should be things like gold. It should be silver. It should be things you own. But how do you do that in a digital age where there's an internet, where presumably we want to be integrated with the global economy? Well, this is where Satoshi Nakamoto came up with this brilliant solution. It's a combination of the blockchain and cryptography, the great ledger in the cloud, that's always resolved constantly with this great incentivized system of verification and mining rolled into one beautiful ballet. And what emerges from that is a restoration of the medieval idea of money as real property. So it's like gold in that way. So when I throughout all of human history, you would carry coins with you. When I turn over my coins, the person who's getting my money doesn't care who I am, doesn't care about my reputation, doesn't care about my willingness to pay the bills. The point is that we're trading real property. So what Satoshi did is he enlivened this old-fashioned system and threw it into the 21st century. and made it possible for any two people in the world to exchange real property in real time, peer-to-peer, without having to go through a government-created banking cartel, a government-supervised financial system, or much less a government-monopolized monetary system. So, I mean, this is the ultimate act of liberation. This is taking the chains off humanity and empowering every single person in the world, regardless of your income, your geography, your IP address, your credit history, anything else, and giving them the opportunity to participate in the great project of commercial life, you know. And who can believe it? I mean, it's like magical, it's mystical, it's glorious, it's earth-shattering, it's epic, it's unbelievable. And we're living through it. And day by day, we have front row seats in watching this world emerge. We are the most privileged people in the history of humanity for getting a chance to watch this and participate in it. It's glorious. We're seeing the way society develops. We're seeing advances that people 100, 200, 500 years from now are going to look back and go, oh my God, what happened in 2009 with this weird new currency, you know? And can you believe that in the 100 years prior to that, governments thought that they had to manage currency? Can you imagine such a thing? What a stupid system, you know? That's what we're looking at now, and that's what we're living through right now. Money has to be property, and it has to be scarce. And the beautiful thing about Satoshi's protocol is that he managed to hack the digital world to create a scarce property unit within it. It's a glorious thing. I mean, it's brilliant. I'm sure it's true for all of you. The more you've studied this, like every day, the brilliance of it is more spectacular to you in your own mind, you know, and that's the way I feel. Like every day I discover something else spectacular about it. And it's just been especially true since the infrastructure has developed more and more, right? So just in the last week, I've discovered how much easier it is. I'm sorry, I'll stop just in a second and take another question, but let me just finish this thought. I've discovered how much better it is to get paid in Bitcoin, okay? So let's say you do a service for somebody, you know, whatever it is. You've written an article, you've, I don't know, you've cleaned somebody's house, whatever, you mowed the lawn or whatever, and they're like, well, it has to be geographically non-contiguous for this to matter, but they write you and they go, how would you like to get paid? With PayPal, I can pay you, and you'll lose 77% of your money. I could send a bank transfer, but then you have to give me all your banking information, and it'll take like about 5 days for this transfer to be effected. How else could you get paid? That's pretty much it. Oh, they could. Oh, I'm sorry. They could write a check and put it in an envelope, and put it in like a piece of paper and put a government stamp on it, and some guy will carry it to you. Okay, or you could just shoot back your QR code or your address, uniquely generated public address, and it takes like half a second to like copy that address, put the money in there, and it arrives like then, right? You've got the stuff. Like, what the hell? This only needs to happen to you one time, and you realize, okay, the rest of the world is an anachronism, right? This is the future. Yeah. This is where history is headed. There is no way to stop it. I don't care what Janet Yellen says, Ben Bernanke, bloviating politicians in Washington, you know, the Senate. It doesn't flippin' matter. This is the dynamic of history. No one's going to stop this, ever. We're just sitting around watching history unfold. All know where it's going. It's just a matter of waiting, it's a matter of time. But it's inevitable. We know this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone here has got whiplash from nodding their head while you're talking. Okay. But I think we're in full agreement there. A couple things you touched on that were really interesting to me. You know, making note of how visceral of an experience it is when you actually get your first Bitcoins and send them your first time, and you have that realization, is so important. And now there's some current events, right, just yesterday, that have really put a damper on one of our favorite outreach techniques for reaching people. So it kind of goes something like, you know, Bitcoin may come up in discussion. You know, a few months ago it was us reaching out to others. More lately, I'm sure everyone here can attest, if you've been doing this a while, it's people coming to you or coming back to you to ask about it. And at that point, you know, in either case, you know, we've strategized a couple times about how to do this, and so the first thing we say is, what kind of phone do you have? Okay, download this app or that app, depending on if it's Android or iPhone. And just yesterday with the news about iOS, you know, the iOS App Store booting the last send and receive Bitcoin wallet, blockchain.info's wallet from the App Store, has really put a damper on, you know, how many people use iOS devices, iPhones in particular. You know, we were talking before you joined us about what can we do in the place of that strategy now, because if there's an Android user or Windows Phone user, you know, we can discuss how that can be done. You know, I'm seeing more and more Android users anyway, but yeah. So yeah, I guess we would like your ideas on what we could do in the place of that strategy for iOS users. How can we, you know, the way we usually do it is, oh, you have an iPhone, download blockchain.info. Here, you know, once you have your username and password, make sure you show me your QR code so I can send you some Satoshis, $1, $2 or $3.
Look, I've done this a million times. Not a million, probably 100 times. You know, with Wi-Fi. Look, the people at BitPay, you know, the upper management of BitPay, they all use iPhones. And they all use the blockchain app. I'm just telling you that's what's true, right? So this is a devastating thing. It's a very stupid decision by one very arrogant, you know, proprietary, obsessed, really shitty little company, actually. And I'm pretty well sick of it, actually. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking as a guy who's like, you know, I use a Mac desktop. I'm talking to you on a MacBook Pro, which I didn't have to. I should have. Anyway, I'm feeling very much in the protest mode against Apple products at this point. I could have used my Chromebook, which is the future. I don't know if you've tried one of these things, a Chromebook. It's amazing. But anyway, $250, and it's a better machine than like my MacBook. I travel with it exclusively now. But no, it's a devastating decision and also they've gone back and forth, right? They were initially like okay with it, then they were against it, then they reapproved. They even approved, they disabled and then reapproved the blockchain app, and then they approved the Coinbase app, actually only like 4 months ago, right? Coinbase had an app. And then now suddenly to turn around the other direction. I mean, it's proof of the corruptibility of human nature. I mean, this is a company that began in radicalism and innovation that's ending in turning against innovation and turning inward. I actually believe that I think Apple believes that it's going to make its own digital currency, and it's going to be called iCoin, and they think it's going to compete with Bitcoin. That's what I think is their rationale here. That's what I suspect. I saw there was an online petition today. It was already signed like by 25,000 people, which I encourage you all to sign, protesting this decision. I think it's just bad corporate management. In terms of how we're going to approach people in the future, I mean, more and more people are using Android devices, so I don't think it's that big a deal. For iPhone users, I suppose there's really essentially nothing we can do anymore except tell them to go back to the desktops, you know, sign into blockchain, and then invite people to an intimate call on Google Chat where we can, you know, scan and talk through how to send Bitcoin. Because once they get that, you know, that'll be done. I think that's the only way forward. I don't know what else to do. It's kind of depressing to me in a way. And it is also sad to me that I suppose that my Coinbase app will not be updated now. Am I right about that?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. On the other hand, yeah, I mean, you can use the web version, right? You can use the Safari browser on iPhone, right? It's just the apps that don't work, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's cumbersome because it's not such a simple experience like it is with the iOS app.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've thought about bringing in someone's Chromebook or someone's spare netbook and being able to sign people up on a computer here that's for public. But again, I like to do it when I'm meeting people in public. I know a lot of our members do as well, and it's a bummer.
I know, it's a real bummer. It's just one stupid company and their very stupid decision. I don't know. Mac has always been obsessed with this sense. They've always hated the open source world. I mean, that's that's the gritty truth about Apple, actually. There's an obsession with IP, with patents, with their own little internal world, and I don't know. I'm just sick of it. I mean, as I say, I use all their products, but I've been cheering on the Android operating system ever since it was first released by Google, and if you think about it, folks. Everyone predicted that it wasn't going to work, right? I mean, Android came out, there were no apps for it. It was kind of cruddy, and within this course of like 18 months, everything changed. It became beautiful. Now there's more apps, more advanced apps available on Android than the iOS system, and in a way that's a tribute to Hayek. In a way, it's a tribute to the open source, crowdsourced knowledge that comes through this weird thing that we have called open source development. It's neither public property nor private property. Very much of a challenge to both the left and the right to understand what's going on here. But I believe in it. I really believe in it. And I'm kind of a personal hypocrite that I've always gone for the easy route of going for Apple. But I think that's going to change in the future, especially as this persists. But on the other hand, maybe it won't, right? I mean, there's a lot of protests. There's a lot of anger out there just today about what's happened.
We were speculating here that perhaps they might reverse their decision because of some public pressure. I mean, you mentioned 25,000 signatures on that petition in really like 24 hours, pretty much. I wasn't aware it was that high. That's really. Yeah,
that was just this morning.
That's certainly a lot.
Yeah, otherwise they're going to be standing against their customer base, which the bigger businesses get, the more shitty they become, actually. I think that's just a general rule. And they're a big business. They've got a huge amount of cash. They're very arrogant. Maybe they feel like they can stand up against their user base. I don't know. We'll see. I hope the people united will never be defeated. That's all I can say.
Well, I think so many of us have been drawn to Bitcoin, many different reasons, but I think largely because it's that optimism that everyone has been hoping for, or, especially for, let's say, I mean, we have, at least I think in attendance tonight, out of 20 or 25 folks here, maybe 21 self-proclaimed libertarians, or, the like, libertarian philosophy, what have you. So I know that's in large part what drew many of us to Bitcoin, and looking for that optimism after the election cycles that we've recently been through and things like that, and people really starting to increase their level of activity, activism-wise, and then being deflated with the system again, and then here comes this thing that you can't really completely deflate. I guess you kind of touched on that a little bit, but that's the optimism in that, and I think a lot of people are concerned about what the future will bring, whether it's with any company, Apple or Google and Android, or even just there's so many things in the news lately with regard to regulation, and Gavin Andreessen's talk at the CFR earlier today. We haven't discussed that yet tonight, but I don't know if you caught that, and touch on why we should be optimistic still in light of some of the threatening regulation attitudes out there.
Yeah, so let me just kind of tell you the bottom line from my perspective. Okay, so in this 16th century. Okay, I'm going to try to make this short. Okay. That's an alarming comment. In the 16th century, right? Like, oh my God, he's going to talk for 45 minutes. No. In the 16th century, there was a thing invented called the nation state, right? And it was an aberration. This was a completely different thing that had ever existed ever before. It was a kind of a permanent immortal thing that was geographically centered and was unelectable and unkillable. So you could chop off the head of the king, but the nation state still existed. You could kill the dictator, but the nation state still existed. It was a kind of a geographic center of permanent employees who obeyed a system of laws that persisted independent of any particular administrative regime. Is a weird thing, it's a despotic thing, and it should never have happened, and it's persisted to this day. And nobody's figured out how to destroy this monster called the nation state. And we should have long ago, but nobody could figure out how. Until the invention of this great, amazing institution called the distributed network. Okay? This is the nation state killer. And why? It's because within the distributed network, anything can live outside of geography and outside of time. On the distributed network lives every kind of information. Texts, pictures, movies, physical property with 3D printing, and now a global monetary system. That's just for now. In the future, law, culture, civilization, whole societies, nations, peoples, globes, worlds, universes. All of it can live on a distributed network. The state cannot kill this thing called the distributed network. I mean, if there's 7 billion nodes, which there's a lot more, the state can kill all but one, and in the blink of an eye, that one can be replicated 1 trillion times. It's a machinery designed to humble the powerful, to topple tyrants from their thrones. It's undefeatable, and so far undefeated and truly undefeatable. It's more immortal than any nation state in the world because it transcends geography and it transcends the physical world. It enters into this eternal realm of eternally scalable realm called the digital cloud, which is infinitely more powerful than any existing nation state. And the more of reality we can kind of move to that cloud, the more invulnerable our lives become to nation state control. That's I think the killer app for despotism in our time. And I mean, we're meeting here as a Bitcoin meetup. I mean, the fact that money itself, half of every transaction, has now moved to this distributed network in the cloud is devastating for the nation states. Absolutely devastating. I know from day to day it could look a little depressing, right? My friend Charlie Shrim, I don't know if you know him. Is the
we all know of him. We're watching.
Okay. I've been corresponding with him all afternoon. He's in and out, but he's going to defeat this crap. I mean, all my friends are in jail. Yeah, he's an amazing man. You know, he's out and he sent me Bitcoin this afternoon. He bought all my books with signatures. He's so sweet. He's such a sweet little boy. I mean, he's just a wonderful little entrepreneur, just a dear man. My friend Ross Ulbricht, who invented the Silk Road, is also in solitary confinement right now. But I mean, this is massive human suffering. These are the martyrs, okay? These are the martyrs of our time who are paving the way for us to live free lives. This is what we're going to be going through. The state will shine its spotlight every once in a while on some one person that they want to kill to make an example out of, but it's not going to work. There's always going to be bumps on the road, but over long term, if you take a bird's eye view, you can see you can see that we're on the road to freedom. All right, and there's nothing that this dinosaur, this anachronism, this pre-internet institution called the state can really survive in a digital world. That's the reality that we're living in right now. So.
Well, I could dive into this topic. I've been trying to do my best to make sure that we're politically agnostic as much as possible, because I think Bitcoin's for everybody, and I want to make it accessible in that way. But I'm tempted to kind of ask you. I mean, they're not going to go butt kicking and screaming, right?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
They're not. They're going to kick and scream for sure. We've never seen anything like this. It's very difficult to understand what the historical precedent is. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, what happens when merchants, like your wonderful beloved bar right there, which I can't wait to go to. Actually, you say it's 2 blocks from where I usually stay in Milwaukee.
Yep, 2 or 3 blocks, and really great music venue here.
Okay, so I can just come and speak. Okay, this is so exciting. Do you have pretzel burgers there?
They don't serve food here, but okay. We won't have to go far. Trust me.
Well, drink is food. Drink is food. I'm okay with that. That's exciting. That's great. So now I just lost track of what you just asked me. The point about kicking. So here's the question. So what happens? So you saw what happened to Overstock, right? I mean, the CEO happened to be a libertarian, which is very sweet, but he accepted Bitcoin, right? And now they're like 1.75 richer than they otherwise would have been because they're accepting Bitcoin, right? This is a great signal to business all around the world. And the thing about business, what's really cool about business, is that it only really cares about profits. I mean, it's sort of unprincipled in that way, sorry, but it's really great in that way. They want money, right? And Bitcoin means money. It means profits. There's no stopping that force. There's no state on the world that can stop free enterprise from trying to make the big bucks. So what happens in a future where people decide like credit cards are stupid, PayPal is stupid, let's just take Bitcoin, and this is the future we're living in right now. This is what's happening right now, every day, every hour, every minute, every second. We're moving to this new reality. What happens to the government's currencies under those conditions? I don't know. We've never seen anything like this, but I suspect it's going to be something like the government's going to continue to expect payment in taxes in dollars, and that will be the main source of the nation-state's money's value is the payment taxes and nothing else really. But even now, it's enormously complicated. I mean, to try to do your taxes in light of Bitcoin transactions is a gigantic confusion, actually. You know, in many directions. And not to mention the fact that, as you've undoubtedly noticed, government officials do not understand cryptocurrency. They just don't get it. They're terrified of it, you know? I was amused by Ben Bernanke's comments that he made about Bitcoin a few weeks ago because, I mean, he was so deferential to it. And I think the reason he was deferential is that he's basically scared of it. You know, he knows it's the future. He knows the dollar is ridiculous. It's the Model T, you know, relative to the Maserati of Bitcoin. And he wanted to be deferential to it. But I don't think they know what it is, and I don't think they know how to deal with it. And I think they're going to have to deal with it. But already, as I say, my friend Charlie Shrem is in jail. You know, and it's horrible. They're gonna snag people. I'm probably gonna be. I think at some point I'm gonna be myself. You know,
talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why I haven't been. Okay, so like after Ross Ulbricht was arrested, you know, he's the founder of the Silk Road. I wrote like 5 articles pointing out that I had an extensive email correspondence with this guy. All right. I thought that at some point the FBI would like come knocking on my door, and just and I wanted that to happen because I wanted to basically write an article about it. I mean, that was what I wanted, but it never happened. I guess I'm just not a dangerous enough figure for the feds. I don't know. Yeah, I need to be a little more dangerous, probably in some way. I don't know what I need to do. What do I need to say? Yeah. But yeah, there'll be a lot of victims between now and then, but there's no stopping history. Anybody who stands in the way of technology eventually gets flattened and destroyed, actually, and made to look ridiculous. That's the way things have been pretty much for a very long time. So,
yeah, I mean that's what I see. I see these bureaucrats or people whose job it is to get in the way of this stuff and say, whoa, slow down here. I have to get my pound of flesh, or I have to get my mitts on this.
Right.
It's funny to see their misunderstandings. That's something we talk about here with new members. That's often their concern is they ride the fence because they want an answer about whether it's safe to do this or not. And their trust is not the problem with trust is not in the technology. It's in the severity of the crackdown that
I know. But it's not illegal. That's what's interesting about it. I mean, I feel this all the time. It's like, okay, here's a cool thing I can buy with the stuff that I got because somebody gave it to me because I sold something to them. I mean, everything about Bitcoin feels natural and normal. Do you know what I mean? You don't feel like you're breaking bad. I mean, if you're cooking meth at home, you'd have some sense that you're doing something illegal, right? But if you're using Bitcoin, you just feel like you're just doing stuff. You're just like engaging in commerce,
Opening a lemonade stand.
It doesn't feel particularly dangerous, and it's not illegal. There's nothing illegal about Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's sometimes hard to relate to some of the folks who aren't as warm to it but want to like it because they see the fad aspect of it. But Jeffrey, we have let's see. Can I just see a show of hands of anybody who is interested in asking Jeffrey a particular question? I think we've got a handful or
Good.
5 or 6.
Okay,
or so.
Let's go.
So I'm gonna get out of the way.
There. I want to be in Milwaukee right now. Why aren't I there?
Me too.
This is where I want to be. I want to be there. Not awkward.
We're gonna send you a microbrewery 6-pack from just down the river. So we'll make sure you get that. That's on its way.
Good.
But yeah, I'm gonna get out of the way and let some of our members ask questions to you. So I think we've got about 5 or 6, and then we all want to hear about your current projects, especially Liberty.me and anything else you want to share. But
okay. Oh yeah.
I want to respect your time too. We're loving this, but make sure that you let us know the 5-minute warning.
Okay.
Go ahead, David. David Hazy is gonna ask you something.
Hi, Jeff. Huge fan. I just want to say thank you personally for your contributions to the liberation of mankind by creating Mises.org and bringing Mises' ideas out of the shadows. So welcome to the theft that's happening. But I have a friend, Josh Norris, who runs the Young Americans for Liberty down in Florida, and he wanted to ask me if you've heard of Ethereum. And if so, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Okay, Ethereum. Yeah.
No.
Let's talk about Ethereum. Okay. So Ethereum.
Yes.
Yeah. What can you say about Ethereum? So Ethereum is like anybody who's into Ethereum considers Bitcoin to be old-fashioned. Okay. So, if you can understand, if you know that, you know everything you need to know about Ethereumite. Okay, so you meet an Ethereumite. They think of Bitcoin is like so last year. Ethereum is an infrastructure of smart technology that uses the blockchain to recreate law itself on a self-regulating basis and on an open source basis. So it's an infrastructure that allows you to create futures contracts, smart contracts, stock markets, financial markets, insurance, anything and everything you want to create using blockchain style cryptography to invent a new social order. Okay, so I know that sounds insane, and it probably is, except that it's not. It's probably real. Okay, but can I tell you a quick story about Ethereum? So all the enthusiasts I know of Ethereum are basically my age, right? I mean, they're like, oh, this is the future. You talk to them about Bitcoin, they're like, their eyes are like falling asleep, right? They're like, oh, that's, yeah, who cares? That's already a done deal. What's the next big thing? The guy who is the main code slinger behind Ethereum, do you know this?
Vitalik Buterin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. We in order to fight the echo, we're unplugging the mic. So just give us a second to reply. But yeah, we talked to the whole Ethereum crew during the Miami conference.
Okay.
They called in to whatever Thursday that was, I think 2 weeks ago. So
Right.
And I met Vitalik for the first time at PorkFest this past summer. So I'm well aware of his acumen.
Right. Okay. So the inventor of Ethereum is is 19 years old, and I say this very affectionately. In the same way, Mozart was an Aspie sort of person. So he is. I mean, like, lives in a different world. You know, sees things other people don't see. And creates for us things we can't imagine. That's essentially what Ethereum is. And it's a terrifying and wonderful and glorious reality to just get even a slight glimpse of. So I'm just touching my toe into this world. I'm enormously excited about it. I wish it weren't 10, 15, 20 years away. I wish it were now. But it is coming. And that is our future, essentially. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful. I haven't written about Ethereum because it's very difficult. I think of myself as writing for regular people in some way, and sometimes I think I'm already perceived as slightly insane. But if I start writing about Ethereum, I will definitely be seen as totally insane. Yeah, I would love to, and maybe I'll find the words at some point. But I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about what the blockchain and distributed networks and open source technology and cryptography, the combination, that winning combination of all those tools in one package means for the future of humanity. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah.
Hi, Jeffrey. I guess I wouldn't feel bad about not knowing much about Ethereum because I don't think any of us really know much about it. So I guess that's a good tangent into my question, is all regulation and compliance and all of that aside, which through experience we've seen a lot of huge Bitcoin companies rise and fall over the last year.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of innovative services come and go, all in the name of innovation and the infringement on innovation that a lot of laws are making it hard, making it really hard for a lot of Bitcoin companies to emerge. Right. And part of my role here in the Bitcoin meetup is to help educate and outreach to a lot of new members and try to just get people's feet wet with Bitcoin and get them comfortable and do what I can to give them some Bitcoin. And one thing that I've learned, and I would not call myself a Bitcoin expert by any stretch of the imagination, is that it's very complex in that a lot of people I've come to terms to accept that a lot of people just won't understand it. No matter what way you explain it,
right.
There's so much depth to it that a lot of people just won't understand it, and I feel I don't understand it a lot. But what I've learned is the only thing that we as Bitcoin users or members of an economy have control over is how easy it is to use.
Right.
And a year ago, it might not. We couldn't even imagine spending bitcoins as easily as buying drinks like we do every week here, due to a lot of the Bitcoin services that have emerged. And it's a little. I'm grateful for a lot of the services such as Coinbase and BitPay, but it kind of troubles me to know that they sort of are the only big players out there, and they kind of hold a monopoly in American Bitcoin merchant services.
Right.
And I'd like to see a lot of new companies come in and give them a little competition, and
I agree.
See some new services come in. And I'm confident that this will happen. What do you think we could expect to see as far as Bitcoin-specific services, sort of using the same technology that Ethereum is using, but specific to Bitcoin and how it could just help people in their day-to-day lives?
So, okay, so let me just back up really quickly and say that there's a lot that we can learn from watching what happened over the last year. FinCEN weighed in with its regulations and said if you exchange in ones and zeros for government monies and back again, you are a money exchange service, and therefore you have to pay gazillion dollars and fill out, like forms this high. You remember this happened, right? And immediately, dreams died of hundreds and thousands of people, and many companies went belly up. In this story, you see basically the history of regulated capitalism. This is how it works. A sector is cartelized because of government regulations, and then only the big shots survive. Only the compliers, only the well-heeled, only the heavily capitalized. And competition is crushed and destroyed. A true free market is smashed as a result of these kind of interventions. And we've seen this in the Bitcoin space. I mean, for me personally, I knew this had happened in almost every industry in the past, whether it's cars or food or clothing. But to see it in real time happening in cryptocurrency was quite shocking and devastating. And you're right. I mean, we love BitPay, right? We love Coinbase. These are our capitalistic champions in some ways. I mean, we love these companies, and they're all filled with good guys. But you're also correct that they're the survivors. They're the people who have survived the war that's already begun and will continue to take place on the Bitcoin ecosphere. In some ways, that's very tragic. That the thing we love so much is already cartelized, already a victim of the state in some ways. So I will say that. At the same time, I don't want to look down on these people. They are all heroes. BitPay, the people at BitPay, they're all my friends. They're wonderful people. Coinbase is a great company. Everybody just tries to survive. I wish we didn't have a government. I'm an anarchist. I don't think we need one. I think it's stupid. I think it's parasitical. It does nothing other than extract wealth and destroy wealth and destroy freedom. I would push a button and smash the state immediately and just watch what happens. I think we'd all be better off. I know this is not a political meetup, but it's a very interesting thing to watch, how the corporate state emerges in cooperation with government regulation. There never should have been any regulations on this world. But let me also say this. The more, what can government regulate about Bitcoin? It can regulate the coming and going. Like when you use dollars to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin to buy dollars, the government can regulate that because it holds dollars, right? It's the owner of dollars, so therefore it claims a proprietary right about what you do with them. The more it imposes itself on the sphere, the more it incentivizes you and me to live within that Bitcoin ecosphere exclusively and to never convert back and forth, but just to kind of continually push to the cloud. The more regulations, the more impositions, the more taxes, the more fines, the more it pushes us further and higher into the cloud, where we can conduct ever more of our business. I'm feeling this myself. I mean, I don't want to ever sell Bitcoin. I just want to live there and buy and do all my commercial operations in that sphere.
Mr. Tucker, I have a great question that piggybacks off just what you were saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you've acknowledged that Bitcoin is a deflationary currency and the advent of Overstock.com and Tiger Direct accepting Bitcoin for payment. I guess I personally love spending my Bitcoin and feel that euphoria that you described earlier, but as Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, how we can convince the hoarders to start spending? Well,
that's a very interesting question, and this is a case in which our intuitions actually contradict empirical reality. So we intuit that the more valuable Bitcoin is, the more we tend to hold on to it, right? But the reality is, and I can tell you just from first-hand reports from talking to all the people in the Bitcoin ecosphere, the higher the exchange rate vis-a-vis dollars, the more the velocity increases rather than decreases. In other words, the more valuable Bitcoin is, the more people are likely to spend it. I know that doesn't seem real, it doesn't seem plausible, but that's what we're hearing. And I think the reason is that people have held on to Bitcoin for so long. Like they had it when it was $10 or $12 or $30 or whatever, and now it's $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, and they're feeling the incentive to spend just because it's so much worth so much more. But BitPay says that the business goes down when the exchange rate falls and goes up when the exchange rate rises. So I'm just saying that that's what's true. I mean, that's an empirical fact. It's not anything we need to worry about, really. A secondary theoretical consideration is that over the last 20 years, if we were going to name the two industries that have been most boom time industries, they've been the deflationary industries. Computers and software, on the one hand, where everything has fallen in price, and clothing is another good example, which has all been outsourced to China, mostly. We've seen falling prices in real terms, and both those industries have been enormously successful. Unlike, say, healthcare, which has only gone, which has gone up in price. So everything else, the most successful industries have gone down in price. The least successful industries have gone up in price. So I just introduced, on one hand, an empirical consideration, on the other hand, an empirical consideration relative to Bitcoin, and on the other hand, an empirical consideration relative to the real world. I don't think that the fact that Bitcoin is deflationary is actually a problem. On the other hand, if you don't like a deflationary currency and you prefer an inflationary currency, you know what? Buy Dogecoin. It's your choice. It's your currency of choice.
Please, Mr. Tucker, I have a question. Yes. So I want the framework of this to be understood as using cryptocurrencies necessitates using digital technology like smartphones and laptops and electricity. Yeah. So regarding cryptocurrencies and free market economics, if a person or company violates the non-aggression principle or somehow acts unethically, people conducting trade with them would logically cease trade activity. That works for companies in the public eye, but how can ethical consumers know business-to-business transactions are ethical? For example, you buy fair trade coffee with Bitcoin shipped on a boat made from an unethical steel company.
Yeah, I don't know how you could know that for sure, but the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it allows you to transfer your loyalties very quickly. So you can deal with people you want to deal with and not deal with those you don't want to deal with. And within a world of global communication, you can find this out very quickly. In fact, I look forward to this. You know, we need to live in a world with zero transactions costs, basically. And I guess you've all noticed this. The beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that you can move it around at basically no cost whatsoever. You know, I mean, you can actually have power over how you use your property. How amazing is that? That's completely different from the way it works in government monies. You know, if you are invested in Coca-Cola and you don't like what Coca's doing and you'd rather invest in Pepsi, to move that money from one company to the other is hugely costly. The transaction fees are massive. The time wait is gigantic. By the time you do it, you sort of lose sight of your moral mission. You know, I mean, it's just such a huge transaction to take place, and you lose no matter what you do. With Bitcoin, I mean, and cryptocurrency in general, you can transfer your loyalties instantaneously without any cost whatsoever. Well, at least notable costs. So you're paying the miners just a tiny fraction of a tiny percent, and that's great because it gives power. I mean, Bitcoin gives power to you and me, the spenders, the consumers, the owners of the money, to decide where we want our money to go, and that's beautiful. We're not being taxed or attacked or fined because we change our minds. We can do whatever we want. I mean, this is freedom. That's one of the reasons I adore Bitcoin. It seems compatible with human nature in some way, with the way things should be. Yeah.
I'm finding that I'm forcing myself to interrupt you as I could listen.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
All day, and apparently you could listen to yourself. No, I think it's brilliant. It's a real honor to talk to you, James Riley. I have a couple questions that have to do with some more fundamental economic questions. I don't know if you've thought about this at all. A lot of people haven't given the fundamental thought to, or applying fundamentals to Bitcoin as of yet, because we're all just kind of wondering what kind of outcome we're going to find from the social experiment. But so I'm going to go ahead and intuit that you are a fan of free market banking, right? You believe that banking serves a role in an economy in a free market sense, provided there's no sort of coercion or colonization.
Right.
Am I right there?
Right. You're right about that.
Okay. So one thing that banking does is turn dead stock into livestock. Actually, what happened was I got into an argument with someone over the opportunity cost of capital as applied to Bitcoin and how really relatively there isn't much. And we started talking all about the framework of the network, the amount of processing power that goes into Bitcoin. But we ended up sort of going on a tangent that had to do with the role that the finance industry plays and the way that it takes capital and invests it. And so I guess without banks, and assuming we're all using Bitcoin, I don't know that there would be a need for banks in the way that we need them now. The convenience factor is gone, right? Because we can just use Bitcoin instantaneously from our desktops or our smartphones if we're not using Apple. And so the role of investing capital where it belongs, what does that do to industry? What is Bitcoin going to affect in that regard? Have you thought about that at all, or is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it helps you rethink everything, right? Banks came about in the first place as warehousing institutions. They took in gold because people don't want to lug around gold everywhere. They wanted to deposit it with the bankers, and then the certificates that swore that there was gold there became themselves monetized as secondary medium. It wasn't money, but it was a money substitute. Bitcoin restores the idea that we don't need these institutions, actually. banks are something of an anachronism in light of the Bitcoin economy. We can all become our own bankers. I mean, it's a beautiful thing in some ways. I love how our smartphones have become little miniature Swiss banks. You know, I mean, we are the banker. We don't need a third-party institution.
Mr. Tucker, in terms of what Adam Smith talks about turning dead stock into livestock, we don't have that as a function in ours.
No, we don't. And there could we could emerge. It's an interesting prospect to think that in the future we're going to see something like money substitutes for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So, so that let's say you as a holder of Bitcoin, vast amounts, lend cryptocurrency to somebody else. I mean, how's that going to actually happen? I'm not entirely sure I understand how this would work. You're going to have to surrender property title to that Bitcoin, right? I mean, you're going to have to give it up.
Right, for sure.
A lot of what we were just saying aside is a lot of this kind of ties into what I was asking was a lot of the added-on features, a lot of the technologies that are being in development. A lot of it kind of uses the Ethereum model of
right. So
right. Having its own self-sustaining online kind of financial institute that is entirely decentralized and entirely automated, and where it's all verified via the network, and nothing, you will not ever need to worry about a single person deciding your fate and your livelihood.
Yeah. The important thing about what Bitcoin reveals is that there's no ambiguity about ownership. So if you are extending credit to somebody, it's very clear who owns what. It's not like you can both be owners. This is the problem with banking today, right? It's so-called fractional reserve banking. There's an ambiguity about property titles, and there's a speculation about when you're going to turn in your notes and whether the money will be there or not. With Bitcoin, that's not really true. There can be escrow contracts that are probably issued at a premium, and I think Ethereum is going to help us understand the way these things will work in the future. But however things turn out, I'm very confident, actually, within the Bitcoin economy, that there's not going to be any ambiguity about property ownership and property titles, and so therefore not an inflation, not a booms and busts that national monies have created. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see how it works out. I mean, we're at the very early stages of Bitcoin in some ways. You know, things are going to get ever more complicated. But the beautiful thing is that thanks to the blockchain, there's no confusion about who owns what. And I think that's the most important feature of Bitcoin, actually, is its property relationships that it makes inevitable.
I just want to say for sure, I'm in total agreement. I think that this is the way of the future. I definitely think that we're going to solve these problems. I think anytime you can, apply nonviolent principles to solve complex sociological problems, you're going to do a better job than if you introduce violence. And so, yeah, we're definitely on the same page in terms of the fact that we agree that we'll see how the market works, and whatever comes of it will be wonderful.
Right. It's so beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to sit at the foot of the market and learn, right? I mean, I would say 10 years ago, I thought I knew everything there was to know about money and banking, and now I sit here in 2014 and go, okay, I didn't know anything, actually.
Yeah.
I just want to watch how things unfold and learn more.
I'm gonna pass the mic. I'm also gonna take that cliche with me to the grave, to sit at the foot of the market and learn. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, Jeffrey, Will again. We want to give you the last word, and we want to hear about your current projects, and I know there's some exciting things in the works.
Okay.
I wanted to say just thank you so much. You're welcome here at our meetup anytime. We can't wait to see you when you come around.
I want to be there.
We're working on a Midwest Bitcoin Chamber of Commerce of sorts, and eventually soon a conference here in the Midwest as well. I know we're saturated with conferences, but you know, one thing I'm thinking this Hangout stuff on air can do is be kind of a easier entry to a conference. You know, when more meetups start, hopefully copying this concept.
Right.
And we can have minds like yours and many others out there, and soon, hopefully, Charlie Shrem the Fourth as well when he's back in the wild.
Right.
And just wanted to thank you so much for just being such a delight and so
it's wonderful.
Fun.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us. You can ask us anything, but go ahead and tell us about your projects.
So I want to tell you that I've discovered tonight the great limitation of digital media is that you can't actually eat a pretzel burger from Milwaukee online. And I look at you and I'm thinking, why are you sitting here? Go get a pretzel burger. I mean, these things are amazing. I don't know if you understand entirely how lucky you are to have pretzel burgers like right in your neighborhood. Okay, this meal is available to all of you anytime. This is like the ultimate life to live. So, and also it's very important that we all have the incentive to gather physically. And pretzel burgers seem to me to be the great incentive. Otherwise, we'd all be happy living digitally forever, right? Anyway, yeah, let me tell you about Liberty.me. So I imagined that despite not eating pretzel burgers together, we could also live a very lovely life. Making friends, creating content, publishing together. I didn't see any space online that allowed this combination of things to happen. So this last spring, I dreamed this thing into being. I got some capital funding. The space is Liberty.me. I think you're going to be amazed at what you're about to see. There's never been any website like this, ever. Nothing this ambitious. What does Bitcoin teach us? It teaches us that the future can be brighter than the present. It can be more spectacular than we ever imagined. Bitcoin is the inspiration behind this venture. I want to create new, beautiful things. That's all. I'm sick of the past. It's shitty. I want a wonderful future. And for me, Liberty.me is that wonderful future, and that's what I'm throwing myself into. So I'm glad for you to go and join up and sign up, whatever. But in any case, I'm almost certain that I'm going to be in Milwaukee in the not too distant future. So I would love a chance. Yeah. No, I feel. Yeah. So I would love a chance to be there with all of you. Yeah.
Tell us how we can stay in touch with the developments of Liberty.me. I know you're close to finishing the Kickstarter campaign, or is it Indiegogo? It's a crowdfunding.
It's done. Yeah, we raised $200K. We're going to go to a closed beta on March 1, to a open beta March 17th, and to a full live site April 1st. So sometime in the spring, I feel certain I'm going to be in Milwaukee. So, I'm not just like telling you this because you happen to be there. I love this town.
You're on the hook now.
Yeah, this is going to happen. So next time I'm there, forget the screens, forget the digits. I'm there. Okay. So.
Pretzel burgers all around.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Jeffrey Tucker joining Bitcoin Milwaukee for live Hangout, and we'll look forward to having you in person, and we'll share that one with the world as well, live streaming, but we'll get the pleasure of your physical presence. So I know we could keep going, and I want to respect your time, and just we're so grateful that you were able to join us tonight, and it was a pleasure coordinating this with you in such a rapid and relatively prepared fashion. So thank you so much for accommodating us, and we will see you soon.
Okay, all the best to all of you. Okay, bye-bye. Okay. Goodbye.